What if I told you that this character from Genshin right here, Kinich, ruined the reputation of an American actors union overnight? There is quite a lot to unpack to this story, from Recast, SAG AFTRA, and voice actors crashing out on social media. But before we can talk about that, I need to make some disclaimers. Number 1, this is a very complex topic, and while I do believe one side is a bit more favorable than the other, I really don't believe it's a fully black and white situation. Number 2, I have tried my absolute hardest to make sure everything I say in this video is as accurate as possible. I am not an expert, and everything that I say are things you can find online. I will link every source in the description. Number 3, some parts of this video might get long, and it does yap at some points, but I thought it'd be important to include full tweets and paragraphs for certain parts. Number 4, this is still an ongoing case, so new information will very likely come up. If I find any more info or anything changes, I will add it to the pinned comment. So first of all, what is SAG AFTRA? The Screen Actors Guild and the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists are an American organization made up of many different roles in the entertainment industry, such as actors, announcers, news directors, broadcast journalists, and the big one for this video, voice actors. According to their own mission statement, SAG AFTRA is committed to organizing all work done under our jurisdictions, negotiating the best wages, working conditions, and health and pension benefits, preserving and expanding members' work opportunities, vigorously enforcing our contracts, and protecting members against unauthorized use of their work. With the rise of generative AI in recent years, there has been an increasing concern over its use in voice work, and how companies could use it to replace real voice actors. After failing to come to agreements, strikes began over better pay and better working conditions, as well as AI protections in their contracts. One strike lasted from July 14th to November 9th of 2023. To my knowledge, this had no real impact on any Hoyoverse game. The next strike against video games specifically began on July 26, 2024, and is still going on to this day. For a little bit, nothing really happened, as we know that voice lines are recorded long before the patch. But in the patches following 5.1, the characters' voices slowly started to disappear from the main Archon quest, and then even the most important event of the year, the Lantern Rite, was almost completely unvoiced. Throughout this entire period, most have been under the impression that the only goal of the strike was to protect voice actors against AI, which is a perfectly reasonable thing to ask for and want. I would not fault anyone for supporting the strike due to wanting AI protection, but over time, that perception started to change, and it all came to a head on March 26, 2025, when Genshin 5.5 would release. In the 5.5 update, it was revealed that Kinich's voice actor would be updated for new content, and the old content will be replaced in subsequent versions. You can even see in-game that both the new and old voice actors are both credited. Now, voice actor replacements aren't new in Hoyoverse games. Multiple characters in Honkai Star Rail as well as Zenstone Zero have been recast in the past year or so, but this was the first replacement we have had in Genshin Impact due to the situation. The original voice actor for Kinich, John Pat Newday, put out a statement where he says, "Hey everyone, if you've been playing the latest 5.5 update in Genshin Impact and are hearing Kinich speak for the first time in 6 months, it is not my voice, I've been recast. I've been withholding voiceover services during the SAG AFTRA interactive strike because Hoyo/Cognosphere wouldn't offer AI protections in the form of a SAG interim agreement. They'd kept my character's dialogue silent for months. All the while I had made the difficult decision to continue not going in until an interactive agreement was signed, and this is ultimately why I was recast. Now obviously, a recast is not what I wanted. I'd hoped that any progress behind the scenes would be made and I could come back safely. Or if recast auditions went out, my colleagues wouldn't read for them. Unfortunately, I was wrong. I absolutely adored playing Kinich. Genshin was my comfort game during the early parts of the pandemic, and it was a dream of mine to book a playable character. At the time, I didn't have an agent, didn't live in LA, or had any connections that would get me close. But 4 years later, I did it. And the messages I received from all of you saying how much my performance as Kinich meant to you made my heart swell. I would and can return if Hoyo invites me back and signs an interim. I stand by my choice regardless of the outcome. Also, the strike is still ongoing. Please don't believe disinformation on the internet. My best wishes to the cast and the production team. Thank you for everything, JP." When I first read this message, I couldn't help but feel sad for him. It was very unfortunate that the game he loves and got the chance to work on ended up recasting him. I wish him nothing but the best in the future. I think it's also important to mention that, to my knowledge, he is a union actor. If we go to his website and open his resume, it says SAG AFTRA right at the top. As for the new voice actor, Jacob Takanashi, he also then put out an announcement about his role. Role announcement. I'm honored to join the English cast of Genshin Impact as the voice of Kinich. Taking up the mantle of Malipo is a privilege, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to carry the flame from the previous flame bearer, John, who did an incredible job. Those are big shoes to fill, and I promise to give it my all. Out of respect for him, for Hoyoverse, and for you, the fans. Thank you to Deanna for their incredible direction and helping me navigate the intricacies of this incredible game, and to Sai Tokyo and Hoyoverse for the honor of bringing Kinich to life. I'm deeply grateful for the privilege of entertaining you all. Now, there were some positive comments from people such as Nathan Nokes, the voice actor for Auron in Genshin, saying, "Welcome to the team, Jacob," which was very kind of him. Keep him in mind because he's going to come back up later. On the other hand, there were voice actors attacking him. The voice actor for Paimon, Karina Bodger, responded to it by saying, "This wasn't a passing of the torch." Kaylee Mills, the voice actor for Keqing, responded by saying, "This is actually kind of diabolical. If you need the money, at least take the role uncredited. This just comes off as an easy grab for clout. It's not a good look." There was also negative responses from other voice actors, and some of them would even go on to subtweet Jacob. Brianna Knickerbocker, the voice actress for Hu Tao, quoted John's post by saying, "Thank you for standing strong and holding the line with us. You're a real one." In the comments, she follows it up with, "Clears throat, some of us, shaking my fucking head," clearly referring to Jacob Takanashi. I'm going to be honest, I was a little disappointed when I read this because I am quite a big Hu Tao fan. This led people to send some very, very bad things to her email, which, look, I get being angry, but some of y'all gotta chill out. The things that I saw are things you just don't say to people. Another voice actor called Jun Yoon would make a tweet looking for a Japanese voice actor, adding to the end, "except that one guy." I wonder who that's referring to. Similar to many other tweets about the situation, it was not received well. But the most aggressive reaction came from Shara Kirby, the voice actress for Candace over on Blue Sky, where she said, "This gotta be the most classless thing I've ever seen with everything going on. Have fun in Genshin, you'll never work on anything else, LMFAO. It's also interesting how they're recording in Japan for EN dub now. Wow, cool. Go a bed and recast me too while you at it. Fuck Hoyo, disrespectfully." Because let's be frank, who is going to beat my ass? Over a video game that underpays the performers and is actively farming their voices so they don't have to hire real people? I do hope it was worth it. Truly, I do. You will never catch me singing that company or any company that operates that way to a simple request of protecting its talents they hired. One more thing. I have never dealt with a fanbase as callous and as annoying as the Genshin fanbase, who would go so far as to berate the voice actors who only want better protections and rates for being rightfully upset that someone publicly scabbed. Just insanity. The only other one I've dealt with like this is the Murder Drones fanbase, and only one of them doxed me. I'm not in the business of arguing and fighting with children. I'm gonna delete some of that thread later because this is a semi-professional page, but TLDR, don't talk to me about Genshin Impact ever again, okay? Okay. These seem like an unofficial quitting letter, so I would not be surprised if Candace got recast sooner or later. Comments like these could be a very harmful thing to say to a voice actor, especially for Genshin. Genshin Impact as well as the other Hoyoverse games are huge projects and they can get you a lot of exposure as a voice actor. And especially an actor who hasn't done much VA work, only having about 4 roles, this is a great chance to get his name out there. But having other people, some of which are now his co-workers, being incredibly rude to him publicly could very well hurt his chances of a career in voiceover. Now, a lot of people were not happy at Jacob, a lot of whom were calling him a scab. A scab in this context is a derogatory term directed at people who work during a strike, or who takes a job from a striking actor, crossing the picket line. After Paimon's VA Karina commented under Jacob's post, somebody replied calling out the hypocrisy, how they were voicing through the strike while getting upset at Jacob for taking the role, which they replied with this: "No, you're right, I am technically scabbing. I originally have this role and technically I can still work this role. I am a disabled person and this is the job that puts food on my table as I record this role year round. But I didn't take this role from another person who was striking. I had this role, and I am stuck with it because I have no other way to pay for my medical bills. But yes, technically I am a scab and you're right. I don't deserve any praise right now. I don't deserve any of it. I deserve to be told off just like this actor, so please do. No one should look up to me. I'm trapped and a coward because I continue this job because if not I end up homeless. I don't say that because I deserve sympathy, I don't. The ones sticking to the picket line deserve all the praise, not me. I love voicing Paimon. Love it. I have been through so much that you guys will never truly understand. But I also know what I am and should not be given any applause for this. If I could feasibly stick this line with my fellow actors, I would. This job actually barely keeps me alive. But that doesn't mean it doesn't make it different. It is not a good thing to my fellow actor that I continue to work on this game. I have struggled with that since the strike started. So call me out for this. Please, I deserve it. If it means we get closer to making things better, then so be it. If anybody would have real influence to try to create some real momentum regarding the strike, it's them. Paimon has the most lines in Genshin by far, and her lack of dialogue, for better or for worse, would be felt the hardest. They said they need to pay their bills, but do you want to know who else does? Jacob. We then learned that Nathan Nokes talked to Jacob and confirmed that he did not know about the strike as he is currently working in Japan under SAG Tokyo, where there is no strike going on. More voice actors would also chime in. Koi Dao, the voice actor for Albedo, made a post trying to address questions people had about the union, which was met with varying reactions, some praising his work on the thread, and others calling it an attempt to shill for the union, as well as pointing out its flaws. I'm not going to read all of it as it's extremely long, but if you want to go check it out, I'll leave it down in the description. And you're going to notice a lot of these posts have very mixed reception. After all this came out, from the recast to the crash outs, Genshin players did the one thing they have always been accused of being unable to do: learn to read. And after doing some digging, SAG AFTRA started to be looked at in a very different light. Throughout the strike, many people were under the impression that it was against AI, and solely for that. And I think everyone would agree that that is absolutely something voice actors should be able to protect themselves from. The day of the initial recast announcement, another voice actress by the name of Anaïdis Quiñones, known for playing Lynette in Genshin Impact and my glorious Queen Fei Xiao in Honkai Star Rail, put out a now deleted tweet tagging the 3 big Hoyo games, saying how her along with other voice actors would like to get back to work, and asking for them to sign the SAG AFTRA interim agreement. Then the official SAG AFTRA Twitter account would quote tweet that by saying, "What Anaïdis said, at Genshin Impact, at Honkai Star Rail, at ZZZ, we'll make it easy for you. Here's a link to our interactive/video game media agreements. Let's talk soon," linking to the interim agreement available on their website. Both tweets would then get community noted by saying, "This agreement has severe limitations on how Hoyo could work with non-union voice actors, including a lifetime time limit for the voice actor, and eventually forcing the voice actor to either join the union, which has large entry costs and fees, or stop working on the project." People started looking into it and realized the contract was questionable to say the least. Within the contract, there was obviously sections about the use of AI to replicate voices, but there was one section that set everything on fire, and that was section 6, Union Security. And I'm going to read this for you word for word to make sure nothing gets misinterpreted. Employer will only employ performers covered by this agreement who are members of SAG AFTRA in good standing, or those who shall make application of membership on the 30th day following the beginning of employment, and thereafter maintain such membership in good standing as a condition of employment. Nothing in this agreement will be constructed as preventing employer from hiring non-SAG AFTRA members in accordance with the Taft-Hartley Act to perform in interactive programs. Employer shall pay to SAG AFTRA, as liquidated damages, the sum of $500 for each breach of the employer or provisions of this section. Any breach of this section is subject to arbitration. Each time the employer hires a performer in violation of this section, it shall be considered a separate breach irrespective from the number of days of employment. It is the employer's responsibility to ascertain if each performer is a member of SAG AFTRA in good standing. Employer shall provide SAG AFTRA the names of performers to be used in the production of interactive material no later than the time of hiring or 48 hours in advance of the initial sessions, whichever is later. Now this is the part where the community started questioning if this was even ever about AI to begin with. It would make them only hire union actors, preventing non-union actors working on the game without being eventually forced to join. SAG AFTRA was called an attempt to create a monopoly on the voice acting industry, and yeah, it kind of does appear like that. And to add on to this, union members should not even be working on Genshin to begin with according to SAG's Global Rule 1, which prevents union actors from working on non-union projects, which makes up about 80% of voice work. But some still do it anyways, which was backed up by Kaylee Mills, which is a little weird because their website actually encourages their union members to audition for non-union projects in order to try to flip the project union. And applying to join the union is not cheap, costing about $3,000. You can buy a C6 R5 Genshin character with that money. That's no small amount. You also need to pay about $200 a year plus a small percent of what you earn, and that could be money that they do not have. Now luckily there are payment plans, but still, it's not cheap, especially because voice acting is a profession that does not pay that much. But when they do decide to let you in, you are now officially a high quality actor. But don't take my word for it. Here's the chief negotiator of SAG AFTRA talking about non-union actors.
Wants to really be active in this space and help make sure this space is not dominated by, non-union performances, frankly, probably of lesser quality, but nonetheless.
I'm glad the entire union yelled at him for that because it's actually an insane thing to say, especially when the people you're calling lesser quality are the ones that you want to give you money. SAG AFTRA has also had some shady stuff in the past. Last year, they announced an agreement with Replica Studios, an AI voice company, which members did not approve of. They have also worked with more ethical AI companies in the past, such as Ethovox, which some view as very hypocritical, and it kind of is. Now, this next part could be more considered drama, and I understand that not everyone wants to hear that, so feel free to skip ahead to the next section if you don't want to listen to it. The voice actor Valeria Rodriguez, known for playing Sucrose in Genshin, would repost an article by PC Gamer titled, "Diabolical. Genshin Impact's English cast gives new Wio the cold shoulder after he frames replacing a striking actor as an opportunity to carry the flame." PC Gamer would go on to say, "To be blunt, Takanashi has written this as though John Patnude, who has been voicing the character for half a decade, stepped down from the role due to illness or a tragic accident or something, which seems ignorant of the reality of the situation. Pot Nude was on strike. Half a decade? That's pretty funny considering the game hasn't even been out for 5 years. Valeria's tweet would get community noted for the misinformation. They would also make a follow-up tweet saying, "It's insane how entitled the gacha fanbase is, holy shit. Keeping our characters hostage from us and hurting our experience." What? We're fighting for workers' rights. That's what a strike is all about. If this was the 1940s and we were striking, it'd be based or some shit. I have no interest in arguing with people who'd rather see integrity replaced by scabs or AI. That's not what video games are all about. It's an art form comprised of so many beautiful artists doing their best. It's not about the money, or fame, or AI. I'm grateful that the projects I'm still working on offer humane protections and livable wages, and fan bases that aren't insane and appreciate real, integral voices. Also, I know this isn't all gacha fans, but the replies to some of my fellows are horrendous. By the way, if you think I'm just being dramatic, last year when I fought some fans online and defended my friend because they were being horrible to her, I got about 15 plus death threats / people saying they'd come to my convention that weekend and make me pay or regret my words. If you're wondering what she's referring to, she's referring to this tweet she made in response to people bashing Courtney Lin, another voice actor who lost her roles in Honkai Star Rail and Zenless Zone Zero for unknown reasons. However, many people assume that it's because of the Natlan boycott, but we do not have a definitive answer. And you know what? Valeria isn't even wrong. There are absolutely some crazy gacha fans. A lot of them will say bad things of voice actors, but at the same time, you can't just sit there and harass the new voice actor and not expect backlash. People started looking pretty hard into these voice actors, and over time, the lore got deeper and deeper. A post by Kaylee Mills, the voice of Kaching, would resurface of her defending Chris Niosi, a voice actor who admitted to a. You might remember him as the original voice for Mota in Honkai Star Rail before he stepped down from the role and was replaced by Ben Balmaceda. She would keep tweeting about the situation, really not making herself look any better, and would make this post. Feel free to pause to read it, but I want you to focus on the last paragraph. I am not comfortable working on any game that refuses to add AI protections, and I think it's important to draw the line somewhere for the future of every single one of my current and future colleagues. This tweet would get community noted by saying how she is still working on Nike, Goddess of Victory, which has replaced voice actors temporarily during the strike. Now somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't she voice like one of the main characters in the game? I would guess if anyone had a lot of voice lines, it would be her, but I could be wrong. Alright, so correction here. Nike's case is a little bit more confusing. Kaylee Mills voices this girl, Robbie, in Nike. From what I can find, Nike records at 2 different studios, Skylark Studios and Sound Cadence. Now Sound Cadence already does have AI protections within every contract. I can't find any info on the AI protections for Skylark though. When I went back to find the tweet now, the community note was removed. So it seems like the community note might have actually been wrong. That's my bad, I apologize. Afterwards, there would be one final post that many would consider the mask off moment. This is one small job for him, not his full-time work. It's Karina's bread and butter. He's done very little VO work, so it isn't what he's relying on to pay the bills. For all we know, his wife's the breadwinner. Either way, they bought a house recently, so I doubt it was a necessary job for survival. This post was, to be honest, very weird. Talking about Jacob's financial situation and implying he could just be a bum is certainly a thing to tweet. Bro's just trying to get his bag. And I guess the kitchen was too hot to handle because she ended up deleting her Twitter account and she has been gone since. Alright, so at the time I'm recording this, Kaylee Mills returned to Twitter a few days ago, and just today she put out a statement regarding this entire situation. To be honest, I have been advised against getting further involved in the situation at all, but I feel like this is the right thing to do, so here we are. First of all, I realize my criticism of Jacob should have never been public. Although I was far from the first person to make a response, further involving fans was not necessary and only caused more strife. I also apologize for bringing up the public tweet I saw in passing about him purchasing a home. It was wrong of me to use that as an argument that he didn't need this one job to make ends meet. I was frustrated trying to explain a point, and honestly, none of that is any of my business. I don't want it to be, and it didn't matter to the point I was trying to make at all. I did send him a message privately on April 2nd to apologize about getting the public further involved and explain why we were upset. Also that, at least personally, there were no feelings of hatred or any hopes of ill will personally or professionally. I do not know him, but I thought about what I would do if a friend or close colleague did something I found hurtful to our community, and I would have indeed not responded publicly. I would have confronted them directly. Although I originally had a much longer statement, and I'm interested in clearing up more of the misinformation I see about our refusal of work versus the official SAG AFTRA strike, etc. I don't want to fully involve any specific actor. The overall situation is so much bigger and more nuanced than this, and I hope in the future we can have a better conversation. In the meantime, I'm doing the work behind the scenes to try and support my community the best that I can. Now, I am very glad that she ended up addressing this. I hope she recognizes that what she did wasn't right and works on improving it. It absolutely is a step in the right direction, and I hope other VAs follow, but it's unclear if she will ever really have a lot of respect from people in the community anymore. Whether you choose to take her apology or not is completely up to you. I like to acknowledge the good in people, but I can never condone bullying your now coworker for taking a job. Now, there were many others who spoke up about this situation, but to avoid this video being 3 hours long, I'm going to do a little bit of a lightning round. Ada Rudd, the voice of Sam in Honkai Star Rail, would post on Blue Sky on how we aren't mean enough to scabs. Luis Bermudez would make a tweet saying how people need to make money to keep food on the table, but implying that Jacob taking the role essentially is taking food off someone else's table. I mean, to be fair, you can't really steal a job that nobody is doing. After responding to Jacob's initial post, Kiba Walker would tell people to shut the fuck up because they don't know about the voice actor industry and are trying to use their struggles for clout, despite the fact that everything people are bringing up are things you can find on SAG AFTRA's official website. After people started harassing Kiba, Jacob Takanashi himself would tweet, "Hey, I know tensions are high, but don't fucking do this. Jesus. If you send death threats to anyone on my behalf, too far, man, too far. I'm sorry you had this happen to you, Kiba." And now I'm seeing it wasn't just Kiba. Come on, guys. Way too far. Suicide and death threats? No. Just no. Knock it off. Kiba would also claim that he knows Jacob quite well, which Jacob would refute. A guy called LittleKuriboh would attack Jacob, as well as make a call-out attempt on Nathan Nokes for working on an AI voice project with consent, as some sort of gotcha moment. Sean Laraway would make a Reddit post on r/Hoyo Gaming attempting to pin the blame on Hoyoverse for the strike, which was downvoted to 0. And after getting cooked in the replies, he would delete his entire Reddit account, and then go on Blue Sky, saying that the Genshin Impact subreddit deserves to be banned. He would even change his bio to say, "Genshin Impact is cringe." The jokes just write themselves at this point. Even one of the casting directors for the game, Chris Taturi, commented on the situation, making a thread calling out how there's a lot of misinformation going around, not saying what that misinformation is, and would then follow it up with probably my favorite quote of the entire situation. Lastly, as a fan, getting on X and flaming a VA or studio isn't going to do anything to push the solution forward. It pushes the solution further away. Grow up. Showing your ass online isn't starting a revolution. If you're not happy, find another game to play. It's that simple. So basically saying if you don't like it, don't play it. We're really going full Genshin fan with this one. It's also funny because that's seemingly exactly what Hoyoverse is doing. They don't want to sign the contract, so they didn't. They're getting VO work elsewhere now. But there was one voice actor who probably had the loudest voice in this, which is funny because they have the most lines in Genshin Impact. That's right, it's Paimon's voice actor, Karina Bodger. Now, Karina has had their fair share of controversy in the past. There was some about how they said Child was a bad brother during his quest, which wasn't exactly true, but that was nothing compared to what we had go down in these last few weeks. Almost immediately after Jacob announced his role, Karina would tweet, "There is a huge difference where you take the role of an actor who is striking for AI protections. You are no castmate of mine." Now, we've already seen that this is incredibly ironic due to Karina still voicing during the strike, which we talked about earlier, and that tweet even got community noted for saying the same thing. They would also repost the same PC Gamer article that Valeria did, that included the blatant misinformation about how long John had been voicing Kinich. There was also this very iconic video of Karina crashing out about the strike, but this was made about 2 weeks prior to all this. This was seemingly due to a situation that happened with another content creator, Darkos88, where she accused him of allegedly spreading misinformation about the strike. Here's the video in question, and I'm just going to let it play out because it's honestly very, very funny.
Okay, here's the thing. If voice actors, both non-union and union, in a video game want a game to go union, the game should go union. Nobody else's opinion matters. That's it. And YouTubers don't know anything. YouTubers don't know anything. They're not voice actors. They've never been in my industry. They don't know what my industry is about. They don't know anything about SAG. They don't know anything about being a non-union actor either. Stop telling me to go to liars. Liars. They are paid to lie to you. Also, I'm sorry. They have more incentive to lie. They have more of an incentive to lie because idiots like you fall for their shit and they get paid for that. Hello? God forbid. I want my industry to actually, function and that everybody gets paid and everybody gets, healthcare. Did you know that, once things become union, people get paid a lot more? So people are like, oh, but, then some non-union actors will have to join the union. Yeah, they'll be able to, easily, because they'll get paid more. Also, there are options that the union has to help pay for those things. There are options to help people pay for the union dues within SAG, but you don't know that. Oh my god, it's almost like you're not an actor. It's almost like you're not a voice actor. And neither are these YouTubers. But bottom line is that both non-union actors and union actors in a video game want it to go union and have wanted it to go union for a long time. So nobody else's opinion that is super fucking wrong anyway matters. Hope this helps.
That did not help. And even later on after this, we learned that Karina actually was forced to join SAG.
So when you did get to LA, how did you get into SAG?
I was forced into it.
Looks like the sunk cost fallacy of no return is setting in. And according to Karina themselves, over on Knockoff Twitter, that video is actually AI generated. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, the video right there on their TikTok page is indeed AI generated. But it is possible this was a mix-up with another video. There is a smaller content creator called Tectone who made a video reacting to an AI generated clip of Paimon. Karina would make a post on Twitter saying, "I have been notified that a big YouTuber used AI on me. Honestly not shocked knowing the content this person produces. Before anyone says this, no, I cannot afford a lawyer. I just got out of the hospital, so now my medical debt is probably more around 13k. But fuck VAs, right?" Tectone would respond in normal Tectone fashion, making fun of the situation.
The voice actor of Paimon is trying, allegedly, to sue me.
After this, the more volatile tweets would eventually slow down, but there were a bunch of retweets, especially one saying things like "fuck Hoyo," which is kind of crazy considering that's who's paying your bills. If I did that to my job in real life, I would get fired immediately. These dramas would get so big that it would reach our friends over in China. And if you know China, they take their games very seriously. They caught wind of this, and I'm just going to read you some of these comments about Karina's TikTok because they are absolutely hilarious. "Please change Paimon's English VA. Everyone will be happy. I'll even do another 6 months of battle passes if you want. I'll top up too if they do it. If I were an EN dub enjoyer and have to listen to this rat scream any longer, I would actually quit the game." What a voice. It's like a desperate mouse that got pressed onto the grill by a piece of bread and slowly gets made into a sandwich. This VA is a classic when stupidity hinders villainy. Karina voiced Paimon for 5 years and still hasn't learned any good qualities from her. If I remember correctly, Hoyo actually helped her change studios before when her pay was being delayed. This is true, as confirmed by Karina themselves. I usually don't attack people based on their appearance, but I didn't ask her to attack me with her appearance either. This situation went so much farther than I thought it would, and now even China is laughing at all this. At this point, it was all just a complete mess. Now before we move on to the next part of the video, I want to take a minute to ask you to subscribe. I take a lot more time on videos nowadays, and given the length and all the information that keeps coming up, this one took quite a bit to make. Only about 5% of my viewers are subscribed, and I'd really like it if we could get that number up. It's free, and it really does help me out a lot. But anyways, let's get back to the video. After the community reception towards SAG would take a complete 180, voice actors going to war, and a lot of things left unclear, another voice actor would step up. Joe Zija, known for voicing Wriothesley in Genshin Impact, would release a YouTube video titled "Genshin Impact and the SAG AFTRA Strike, What You Need to Know." I'll leave it down in the description if you want to go check it out. I heavily recommend you go watch it as he shares some very important information that confirmed a lot of what we already knew, as well as some other things that we learned.
So, we've lost our shared humanity over a f***ing gotcha game.
We? Who's we?
This might just be a lighthearted joke, but this is severely downplaying what actually happened. This is no longer a gotcha game issue. This is about the bullying of Jacob Takanashi, as well as everything that came out about SAG AFTRA's attempt to unionize Hoyo games. The largest takeaway from the video is that the SAG AFTRA strike only affects select companies. Here's the list of struck companies: Activision Productions, Blindlight, Disney Character Voices, Electronic Arts Productions, Epic Games, Formosa Interactive, Insomniac Games, Llama Productions, Take-Two Productions, VoiceWorks Production, and Warner Bros. Games.
Do you know what company isn't in that select group of production companies being struck? Hoyo. I cannot emphasize enough that MiHoYo properties are not and never have been union games. Therefore, Genshin has never been a struck property. There are 0 union rules governing Genshin or any MiHoYo game, period. End of story as of this date. This is not a debate.
The strike is against the specific properties we just mentioned. All of the Hoyoverse games are non-union and have never signed a union contract, meaning they are all fair game. But you might notice a familiar name here. Formosa Interactive is struck, but listen very carefully to what I'm about to say here. There are 2 different Formosas, Formosa Interactive and Formosa Ocean Post. Genshin recorded at Formosa Ocean Post, not Formosa Interactive, as confirmed by Sam Slade, the voice actor for Topaz and HSR, as well as Ambi and ZZZ. Ocean Post is non-union, but Interactive is the parent company. Non-union actors could still work on the game, but union actors would have to halt work, although they shouldn't be working on the game in the first place. Hoyoverse would end up dropping Formosa Ocean Post. We don't know the exact reason for this change, but the most likely reason is payment issues. About a year ago, it was revealed by 2 voice actors, Karina Bodger, who we talked about earlier, as well as Brandon Winkler, the voice of Kazuo's friend, were not getting paid for their work in Formosa Post, which was later resolved. And about 5 months ago, Alejandro Saab, the voice actor for Sino and Genshin Impact, as well as Jing Yuan and Honkai Star Rail, confirmed that Formosa no longer records for Genshin Impact.
Formosa has not signed the interim agreement. They have not, but also they don't record Genshin anymore. So, so yeah. So that's not really a thing.
It was then announced that Genshin Impact was now recording under SAG Global, starting from seemingly 5.2 onwards. This is especially why we've been seeing more international talent in the game, with newer characters such as Lanyan, Mizuki, and Verisa all having VAs based in the UK. Even the new voice for Kinich is based in Japan. According to the official SAG Global website, not only is our LA studio SAG AFTRA certified, but we're also a signatory of the Interactive Media Agreement. Said simply, whether you're interested in pursuing a union or non-union project, our team is an expert at contracting, booking, and paying voice talent. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but we have seen some of the voice actors return to the game, such as Ian-san, who was muted during some of the Archon quests, but returned when she became playable in version 5.5. That could be due to the studio, the strike, or other factors. Again, we don't really know. As for Hoyoverse's other games, Honkai Star Rail is recorded under Rocket Sound, a non-struck studio. And as for Zenless, it is recorded under Sound Cadence. You might also hear people call it Farina Studio, as owned by her voice actress Amberly Connors. This is a studio that features explicit AI protections, regardless of union status. We also know that China does have laws against non-consensual AI use. Last year, a new civil code was put into effect that makes it illegal to damage, alter, or falsify someone's voice with technology. The law also prohibits AI-generated voices without the person's consent. To my knowledge, AI voice has only been used in a Hoyoverse game once in Tears of Themis with the character Vin, who had an AI voice for some time due to the voice actor not being able to record. This clearly shows that Hoyoverse supports actors against non-consensual AI, and the reason why they won't sign the contract is likely not due to AI. This means that Jacob Takanashi was telling the truth when he said he didn't know about the strike, because there was no actual strike, meaning he is by definition not a scab, and as harsh as it may be, Hoyoverse is fully within the right to replace you if you do not come in for 6 months. Instead of being called a strike, it was now referred to as a collective work refusal. But why were the voice actors not coming in? Well, good question. We don't really know the exact answer. They all had different reasons. Some did want Hoyo to unionize, some wanted AI protections, something like the Navarrete Agreement. Some wanted to show support for their peers, some had social pressure to do so. Maybe some just did not want to come in at all, which is unlikely but still possible. Again, we don't know, as every actor felt different. But if it really was an individual thing, then why was the official SAG AFTRA Twitter account tagging the Hoyo games to sign the deal like a Justin Bieber fan trying to get an autograph, even since all the way back in 2023? Since Hoyo was not struck, it left a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, including my own, that Hoyoverse would continually be brought up regarding SAG when they have nothing to do with the strike. And while striking solidarity is an honorable thing to do, you still do very well run the risk of being replaced. And now the new voice actor was harassed over a strike that doesn't actually exist. Hoyoverse is not new to recasts. We've had multiple of them in Honkai Star Rail for unknown reasons, and we had 2 in Zenless last month due to this situation. But this was the first time it happened in Genshin. And I think Hoyo figured Kinich would be a character who in theory would have caused minimal damage from a recast. He only voiced for 1 patch, and the amount of screen time he had was not that much versus the other Natling characters. Him being replaced compared to another long-standing character would have had much less of an impact. A Genshin impact. Now, I'm not one to defend a multi-billion-dollar company. I have multiple videos criticizing Hoyo. I am not a fan of many of the things they do, but Genshin and by extension Hoyoverse have been seemingly pretty patient with the EN dub actors. When they learned about Paimon's voice actor not getting paid, they took action and even moved them to a different studio. And I think it's also important to mention that according to Kaylee Mills, a lot of the non-union actors who work on Genshin make the union rate. The events have largely been missing voices for the past 6 months, even important things like the Archon quests. I'm sure sacrificing your game quality so much isn't necessarily something they wanted to do, but they held out for quite a while. Why did they wait so long? I don't know, but maybe they're losing their patience on having most of the characters muted and just want to move on, which they are within their right to do. We also got more information regarding union status in something called Taft-Hartley. Taft-Hartley was a labor law put into effect back in 1947 to limit rights of unions and protect employee rights. To explain Taft-Hartley briefly, if you are non-union, you can work a very small amount of union work for about 30 to 90 days before you are considered a must join, which at that point you have to join SAG to continue working on the project. This can be an issue if you don't want to join the union, but on the other hand is the way to join the union if you haven't done so. This was clearly intended to be more for movies or TV shows where they'd be designed as more one and done deal. It was not designed for a live service game like Genshin where it's just simply not as practical. But there are a few things you can do. For one, if you are in one of 26 right to work states, you are not required to join the union, even if the workplace is unionized. You can also do something called Financial Core, or FI-Core, which lets you work on both union and non-union projects, while losing out on a lot of the union perks. According to the official SAG AFTRA website, FI-Core members are considered scabs. Look at the pot calling the kettle black, except the kettle isn't actually black. And if you are a union actor working on any of these games, and you don't have anything we just mentioned, you are indeed breaking Global Rule 1. It's entirely unknown if anyone has had action taken against them for breaking the rules while working on these games. There's also the question on if Hoyo can even sign the contract in the first place. Independent unions are illegal in China. MiHoYo is a Chinese company. Other Chinese companies have signed union contracts in the past, but it's a little more complicated than that. A game like Marvel Rivals, made by NetEase, was made in collaboration with Marvel Games, which is based in America. They signed the agreement and it's a union game, but MiHoYo is a Chinese company based in China. There has been talks about Infinity Nigi signing the contract, which is under Paper Games, another Chinese company with Infold as its global brand. According to the SAG AFTRA website, they are not struck and or have signed a union agreement. Now, MiHoYo is a Chinese company, but they do have Hoyoverse/Cognosphere as their global brand, based in Singapore. Signs point towards Hoyoverse being able to sign a union contract.
But it is important to say that yes, Hoyo could absolutely make all this go away by just signing a union contract.
Even Joe Zija himself says that they can. And if that's the case, well then, should they? Well, let's go over the pros and cons of if Hoyoverse should go union. When it comes to the actors, they would get the chance to join SAG AFTRA, which would give them perks such as the ability to qualify for healthcare as well as pension benefits. If Hoyoverse were to go union, they would also have the protections against AI and have SAG's legal team if those rights were to be violated. It also allows them to get in larger projects such as Disney if they're confident that they can obtain that work. But joining the union can also be a massive con. First of all, the price. We've already established that $3,000 is not cheap. Joe even said he spent $4,000 on it when he joined. If an actor doesn't live in a right-to-work state, they would have to either join the union or go FI-Core, which I don't see why a non-union actor who signed up for a non-union game should be obligated to fork over $3,000 to join the union. Now, it would be possible for SAG to negotiate a waiver to avoid the must-join rule, but then that would be under SAG's control, and that's not something you're going to want to leave up to chance. If you decide to join the union, you can only work on union projects, and that's preventing you from about 80% of voice work. Now, according to Clifford Chapin, the voice actor for Billy in Zenless Zone Zero, said that the number of union contracts in a right-to-work state like Texas are practically zero, which means if you are in those states, that just kills your career. My question that I have to this day is this: why would a union actor willingly work for a non-union game knowing full well that they cannot work on it, break their own Global Rule 1, leave the character unvoiced during a work refusal, which, to be fair, if that's what they want to do, that's fine, but then expect Hoyoverse to go union? I just don't get it. Especially ones who would go harass the new voice actor over a job he was offered, when that character had been silent for 6 months. I have my guesses on why Hoyo might not want to sign that contract, but I heavily doubt AI is the reason for it. Maybe they don't want to limit themselves to mostly union actors to have a more diverse roster. Hoyoverse has shown time and time again that they're always willing to pick up newer talent and choose people who have done little to no VA work. Perfect examples that come to mind are Venturine and recently Cypher in HSR. It was their first respective voice acting roles and they both did a great job. We don't have the exact reason why Hoyoverse won't sign the contract, and we will never know. But what we need to keep in mind is that Hoyoverse is a business. They will run the game however they see fit, and if that means recasting voice actors who refuse to come in, then they will do it. And think about this from Hoyo's perspective. Would you rather have a huge pool of anybody in the world you can work with, or the small amount of union voice actors in America? It's pretty obvious, as a business, which one you're going to take. So, let's review. The SAG AFTRA strike started in 2024 and the Genshin Impact voice actors are affected. After Kinich got recast, other voice actors would attack the new guy. After Genshin players learned to read, the SAG contract looked a lot more like an attempt at control instead of just being about AI protections. And after learning that Hoyo games were never struck to begin with, most of the community turned on the English voice actors. It's a pretty messy situation, and now nobody's happy. Given everything that transpired about SAG in these last few weeks, I don't know how much community support they're going to have left. Now we have to simply wait and see what happens. And I also want to say my own take on all of this. I am not anti-union whatsoever. I have family members in unions in real life. You can dislike parts of SAG and not hate unions. This is not a union versus non-union debate. I think unions are and can be a great thing to workers when they have their best interests at heart. But a union's job is to support the workers they have, not force them to join. And the actions done by some voice actors and even SAG AFTRA themselves have made it now just feel like a losing battle, especially without much community support anymore. And let's keep something in mind. Hoyoverse is not a company who will fold under pressure, but now they're in a lose-lose situation. If they sign the contract, SAG wins and the EN dub is in their hands. If they don't sign, they will face backlash from the inevitable recasts. Do I think they're going to budge? Honestly, I don't really think so. They've stood their ground for a while now, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. I do really hope AI does become more regulated with some sort of contract, or ideally in law. And we've already seen some, such as California AB 2602, as well as the No Fakes Act that was recently reintroduced into Congress. But with all the things we've learned in the past month, SAG doesn't look good. From trying to group Hoyo into a union contract, not enforcing their own rules, and even now sending threatening letters to voice actors, is not a good look. And it's not something Hoyoverse should sign, nor should they be forced to. And in a weird twist of fate, when Hoyo is constantly shit on by pretty much everyone, for this situation, Hoyoverse actually doesn't look like the bad guy. We got even more recasts in the News Endless update, which is mostly met with indifference from the community. Jacob should have never gone harassed, Karina shouldn't have made all those TikToks, Kaylee Mills shouldn't have had to apologize because it shouldn't have happened in the first place. This really is not just about AI. It's unsure what the future holds, but I hope this serves as a lesson of what not to do when you want to get people to support your cause, because you might just end up making your whole movement look like a sick joke. Before this video ends, I want to say thank you so much for watching all the way through. This video took a ton of time, so any support is greatly appreciated. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, join the Express Train Discord server, the link down below, and also, I do plan to stream more on both YouTube and Twitch, so feel free to come chat if you ever have time. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.